Welcome to the latest episode of the Streamline podcast, coming to you live from Austin, Texas during South by Southwest. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but if you hear some music going in the background, you'll know exactly why. The good news is as well, it's not just me here. I'm joined by my good friend Rosie, who's part of an electronic duo out of Australia called Feels. Hi, Rosie.
Hello. How you going?
Really good, really good. I'm so glad we got to meet up. It's crazy because the last time we met was at EMC, the Electronic Music Conference in Sydney, Australia. And I saw your performance and I just went, it is just so much fun and there's so much energy and the amount of talent and just everything that was going on and your branding, your look, it's just all on point. And
it's a bit of a sensory overload, I think, on stage with like the sticks flying and the colours and then the music being kind of weird in itself.
Exactly, and it just works so well. I know that we've kept in touch since, and obviously I'm a fan of your music as well, and always supporting any opportunity I get and spreading the good word. But I'm glad we got to connect today because what I'd like to do is introduce you to the audience and more importantly, let you tell your story. By that, I mean, you can tell as much or as little of the story as you would like, but I'd love to know sort of what got you to the point right now, what you're excited about, and anything that you'd like to share. So I'm going to hand it over and I'm going to sit back and...
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, interject at any time. I started playing drums when I was 10. So I was playing drum kit and I was playing percussion.
Okay.
I was learning at school, and all throughout my learning, I essentially from the earliest point that I can remember, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever and I want to be a professional musician. And even before I started learning drums, I was playing piano and my mum said I would just constantly be putting on performances. I was just obsessed with the whole performance thing, right? And I was learning classical music. That was like what I was doing. Yeah. So I was also doing jazz though. So it was kind of weird. Jazz and classical. Doing jazz drums, playing classical percussion. And I actually went to university. So WOMPP, which is the West Australian Academy of Performing Arts, to study classical percussion.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
So I wanted to be in an orchestra. That's like what I wanted to do. I wanted to be at the back with the crash cymbals, like counting like 200 bars, big crash, or like playing timpani. I was really intent on doing that for a long time. And then partway through my study, I actually started playing in other people's bands. So I was playing like contemporary stuff on the side, a lot of electronic bands.
Okay.
So I was doing like live percussion in their bands and then some triggering stuff as well. And I started going on tour and stuff in Europe, in Paris, and like some places in France. And then I was coming back to uni and then like running in to do classical performances, So it was like these two worlds that I was moving at the same time, parallel universes that I was jumping between. And then at some point, I remember being in a classical rehearsal and just being like, this is not what I want to do anymore. I didn't have that spark, like that really exciting feeling that I would get when I would play and be like, yes, this is awesome. I feel so good. I didn't have that anymore with classical, and which I thought was super sad, but I was like, cool, all right, I'm going to finish my degree because there are so many parts of that degree that were really awesome. Like the discipline, the training, the technique, which that translates to everything in music. And I think it's really great to have a classical underpinning. And so I finished that, and then I started a band with Elise. Mm-hmm. So Elise was also studying at a different university. She was studying composition.
Okay.
And percussion as well. So we got together on a casual afternoon. She comes, she's like, come to my house. I want to show you some stuff I've been writing on Ableton. And I was like, cool, I've seen Ableton before. I haven't really used it that much. And this is where it all started, where she would be like, oh yeah, I recorded all these sounds with my hairbrush and this paper bag and we can make this beat. And I was like, oh yeah, and then what about this? We could add this triangle thing that's not even a triangle. And oh my God, you can make sounds with this program. I had no idea the capabilities of Ableton. I saw it as a live looping tool, which is so funny because it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And that's actually when we started writing music as Feels. And it was 6 months after that, we put a label on it, said, shit, we need to come up with a band name. Yeah. ASAP, because we wanted to start making profiles and putting music out.
Yeah.
And I think our first stuff, we actually just uploaded it to SoundCloud, and that was it. That was
Okay.
how we released music in the start. And then eventually we got, after 6 months of playing as well live, we got, I'll explain this live set as well. We actually kind of combined the classical vibe of having lots of acoustic instruments and then also electronics. So like I was playing an SPD SX, which like every band on the earth has now in their setup. But I was also had like toms, I had triangles, I had shakers, I had some like, some really typical auxiliary percussion that I was involving. And Elise was using a push 2.
Okay.
So it was a bit of a mix of the both. And we were playing for 6 months until we got we started talking to a label in Melbourne. It was a indie label, Spirit Level, which is Gautier and Tim Schill's label. And they ended up signing us, and we released our first EP under them in 2017.
Awesome.
Yeah, which was really cool, especially because we just were like throwing music online, being like, I don't know how this works, like go see what happens.
And Gautier seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, he seems to do.
That's a pretty amazing starting point right there, as far as you signing the first EP, right?
Yeah. It was crazy, and it was definitely like this kind of interesting EP that still had this like rooted, like you can hear in the composition, it's classical in the way that it's like approached, but a lot of the sound design is not typically classical or anything. So that was definitely a little bit interesting, and then after about a year with Spirit Level, we actually started our own label, which at the same time as we were doing Feels and we were playing, heaps of gigs, we started to notice that there was a lack of women in our community. So we'd played a few live gigs and we were like, oh, there's this person, there's that person, that's great. And then we were like, wait a minute, where are all the other women, What's going on there? Like where... I'm sure they exist. I know they do, and I'm sure they're like, writing beats in their bedroom or whatever, but why are we not seeing them on stage with us? And that's when we decided to start this Facebook group where we invited people, like we would target them based on this like zero knowledge, just being like, oh, you like electronic music? Like maybe like you should come to my studio and we should hang out and talk about Ableton. So we started this thing once a month, and people actually came, which was like a big surprise to us.
Cool.
And we didn't know them, which was even cooler. They weren't just like friends feeling sorry for us. And we bought wine and cheese to like, lure them in and make sure like, oh, it's cool, we got wine, like everything's gonna be great. And we started our first ever WOMPP meetings. And so we would do like free lectures on Ableton. And I think back then it was much more free, like, we would free form. We would get people to just get up and talk about their music and show some stuff on. We had like a projector on the wall.
Cool.
Yeah, and basically just nerd out, which was really cool. And from that, we've been doing it now for 2 years, and we just started doing meetings all the time. And eventually this group grew from 5 people to there's like a Facebook group of almost 600 people now that are involved in the community online, and the active community in meetings. We've got like, 30 to 50 people coming to these meetings now. And we also take it around Australia, around the world. We've done Perth, we've done Sydney, stuff in Melbourne. We've also done New Zealand, so technically that counts now as international. And so we had this thing running on the side of our artist project. So both of us ran both things, and it got to a point when we realized that we weren't just an Ableton user group. We were actually a booking agent, because we started facilitating people's gigs. People were coming to us to say, hey, WOMPP, like, we want to put on the show. Who do you recommend? And, like, we were essentially, like, working for free for ages without realizing it. But, that's how we were getting experience.
Yep.
All of a sudden, we're like, let's put a label on this. Let's put a name to what we do. Got a fancy website. It was, one of our WOMPP members is a web designer, which was really cool.
Oh, how convenient.
Oh, very convenient. There are some seriously talented people in this group that have, they've all really put in to help make WOMPP what it is now. But we kind of realized, we're already doing that. Let's just do it officially, So we started a booking agent. We've got about 9 people signed to that. And we started a record label. So then what we ended up doing is releasing our own music via our own label.
Yes.
Because, I just think it was something that felt so right. We learned so much with working with Spirit Level. It was really great. I think that obviously we wouldn't have been able to do it without working with a label first.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know what we were doing, as I said, when we started.
Yeah.
And I think literally everything, apart from the training that I've had in my instrument, everything that I've learned in the industry has just been through doing it. And so we're at this point now where we're playing South by Southwest, which has been, one of our biggest goals in our career.
Yep.
And last year was a really big year for us. We won 3 West Australian Music Awards.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. That was...
not just one.
Yeah, not one.
You couldn't just take one home. Oh, you got 2 more there?
Oh my God.
We'll take those as well.
It was actually it was the biggest shock ever because we didn't expect it. And the funniest part was like, we got one and then we were walking off stage and then they were like, you got to get back on stage. You just won another award. And we were like, oh, what do we do? Like, it was great. So we won for Best Electronic Live Act, which was really cool because we've been working so hard on our live show. It was awesome to have recognition for that. The other one was for Best Electronic Producer, and the other one was for the label. So we won Label of the Year.
Wow.
Yeah, which was just like a shock because we'd only been going for 8 months at that point.
Wow.
So it was big, and then we did a TEDx talk last year about WOMPP and the work we've done with that, which we can go into later, I guess, if you want to know more. But
yep.
I'm like, I've probably missed heaps of stuff. But yeah, our live set, actually, I will talk about that, changed massively as well. So we've moved away from that really like classical vibe. We were trying to be like, oh, so different, and oh, what about this sounds? Now it's actually just like, it's all about the driving rhythms. It's all about almost like a DJ set approach to how we do stuff now.
Okay.
So it's like a 40-minute live set, doesn't stop. There are transitions between the tracks, so we treat it very much like BPM matching the tracks and then figuring out what key everything's in and then flowing seamlessly.
Wow.
That's like what we like to do. And then I play all the drums live on my SPD. I have like 11 drum pads set up now, actually. And then Elise plays a 4.5 octave electronic marimba called a mallet cat with 4 mallets. And so, yeah, she plays like bass lines, pads, leads, and whatever, and all the programming's done via Ableton Live. So she doesn't have to press buttons. It's all, the programming is done. So she'll switch instruments throughout the set.
Awesome. That's really cool.
That's like where we're at, I think.
I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing how much you've done in how little time. I mean, when I met you, I could tell that you've been in music for a long time because of the stage presence, the talent, all of that. You don't learn that overnight. But I had no idea how quickly everything else took off for you. Obviously, you found a need, and you found artists that are awesome and needed to reach an audience, and you helped them to do that. And as a result, you won multiple awards.
Yeah, and, I think it's like,
that's amazing.
I'm just like obsessed. It's like this, as I said, I was like a weird kid. I was obsessed with the concept of like being the musician, being a performer. But I think not only that, but I love working with people. And I feel like that's almost why I was a drummer as well, because it wasn't about me being at the front of the stage playing, which is now I am, which is weird for me, kind of, in a way. But I love making music with people, but I loved working and like lifting everyone up together. I just have loved that team vibe. And that's like why I'm not a solo artist, why I work with Elise, and why I work with WOMPP. It's like I'm obsessed with what I do, but I'm obsessed with music. So it's kind of like, it's really weird to think about how short amount of time it is now. But yeah, I've like basically killed myself over it. But working hard. But that's what it's about.
That's really cool, and it's one of those things. When one of us wins, we all win.
Absolutely.
And it's so true because you're all helping each other. So it doesn't matter who in the group has something great happen. Everyone is happy for them, and you know that it just keeps coming back. So when one of those artists gets booked on a significant tour and they look for a support act, they're probably going to look to one of you and say, you're ready, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's what I love is with, the artist community, there's these little groups that are forming now where they're actually doing just that. They're actually supporting each other, because the music industry on the other side of this can get kind of lonely at times, especially if you're just sitting in the studio by yourself producing music all night on a Saturday night. It's nice to know that there's other people doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's also nice to know that there's people out there that are excited for you and willing to help you as well. And, that time that you spent at home that when you could have went out, it was worthwhile. And,
oh yeah, a lot of sacrifices like that.
Oh yeah.
For sure. And it is
Definitely.
nice to know that other people are doing the same thing. They're working hard as well. They're not just out partying or like having a good time, or they're working hard producing music, as you said. Yeah.
Exactly. I know you've mentioned WOMPP and touched on that a little bit already, but could you tell us more about WOMPP, I guess sort of future goals as well as to like where you'd like to take it?
Totally. So we actually, as I said, the main goal was an Ableton user group. So there was one in Perth already, but we were going to it and we noticed that there weren't a lot of women coming. And there was a certain vibe that we did notice. There was a lot of men there, and there was a sense almost of competition. Like, people would get up and show a track, and people would immediately try and take them down for like, oh, you didn't sidechain that properly, or you know, and it was just like a bit weird because it's like, this is a community meeting. We're meant to be saying like, you know, helping each other, and there is a way to do that without, you know, taking people down, which I don't know, that's like a whole nother conversation in itself about masculinity perhaps, I don't know, but I noticed like that doesn't affect me so much because I've had that my whole life with being a drummer. You know, like I've been the only female drummer in lots of situations. So for me, it's always been that kind of like, people treat it like, oh yeah, you don't really know what you're doing at sound check. And then I'm like, yeah, we'll just wait until I play and then you can shut up, you know, which almost like put that fire under my butt, you know, it helps me to work really hard because I wanted to prove people wrong. I'm like, I don't know, is that evil? Like,
no, I think that's great. I mean, you turn that negative energy into a positive, and that drives you to go, I'm going to smash this. Yeah. And you are going to feel so dumb.
Yeah, totally. And that's like, I'll never say to people, you know, that, oh, it's so hard being a woman in the industry. Like, it's different, it's challenging. But I also think we have an advantage because of that, you know, to say, well, I'm going to show you, you know, and I'm going to work. And at the end of the day, we have to work harder. But does that maybe makes you a better musician, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And for any musician out there, but especially like you said, I mean, I can't speak from experience, of course, but from what I've seen, it's definitely harder for you know, women in the industry to really get out there because, you know, obviously there's a whole bunch of different reasons out there, but it's like you said, masculinity is part of it. Some people just, you know, they're geared that way in their head. They think that way, and
that's
it's just
sad. And it's like, it's also hard for men. Like, it's not like saying it's harder for one person, harder for other people. Like, we've got to also recognize like our privilege and where we individuals come from, and everyone's had a different experience, but also I think one of the core things is the recognition. Like, it's hard for women to just be immediately, when they walk into the studio, you know, it's not like, oh, if they're the producer, you know, people don't necessarily treat them like the producer immediately. Like, I had this like, you know, awful stories about like talented female producer of mine walking into a writing session where she was producing for this artist who thought that she was the assistant and asked her to get him a coffee. And I know, like, cringe. And she did it. And she came back and she was, you know, to be funny, and then was like, okay, cool, so let's start your track now. And he was like, what? You know, when he realized, you know, stuff like that. It's just, it's mental. But anyways, the reason we started WOMPP was we noticed that not everyone was able to really combat these issues head on and stay confident. So we thought, let's create a safe space where people don't have to put up that wall, because a lot of people who are coming to this thing never ever have showed anyone their music in their life. They were a bedroom producer, like the definition of, you know. No, you know, their friends don't even know what Ableton is, or like if they use it, and they would come and show us a track and they would be super nervous. They get up in front of everyone, and we have 2 rules, and it's 1, do not apologize. So you're not allowed to get up and go, oh, it's not good enough, oh, it's not finished. It's like, whatever it is, this is what you're showing, be proud of it. And the second rule is don't talk over your track, because people love to go, oh, but then there's a guitar solo here, just like, you know, like, shush and let me enjoy it, because it's literally all the time, it's always amazing. So it's been really cool to see these artists come in and being at that really new point, showing their music, being super blown away, because you can't tell by looking at people what they produce. So that's like my favorite part, is like, oh, what's this going to be, you know? And then from there, what we would do is for the rest of the meeting, you know, we'd have lectures, we would talk about very specific topics to teach people, because we noticed that the biggest thing was actually, it's the education. It's giving people a pathway to learn. And the pathway is the biggest thing we've noticed with our work with WOMPP, is that's not there for women, trans, non-binary producers to actually learn, because they don't think that they can, you know. So our goal then was we started doing showcases where we would hold gigs and put on a mixture of a lineup of an experienced person, someone who was working their way in the industry, and then someone who was brand new. So the first slot would always be an opener of someone who played a track at the meeting. So we would give them this kind of WOMPP pathway where we say, you play the track at the meeting, then we go, awesome, that was so cool. Okay, when are you going to play live? And we'll say, pick a month, and they'll choose a deadline, because deadlines are, we all know, are extremely important for productivity.
Absolutely.
And then from there, we would give them their first gig. And so a lot of people now we've seen have come from not using Ableton at all, being a singer-songwriter that was paying some dude like $1,000 a track to produce something they didn't even want at the end of the day, which was really sad for them. And go, cool, come in, learn how to use Ableton with us, then go away, work on it yourself, come back, play us a track, and then figure out how to do a live set, which we can also help with, and then play your first gig. And from there, we saw people do that and then go on to release their own EPs, which they were all completely self-produced. So
wow.
It's been amazing. And
it's
like,
amazing.
It's easy to talk about all these things and be like, oh, this thing was great and this thing was great. But at the West Australian Music Awards, which we just talked about before, we actually had a look into some numbers within our own community about the actual growth. And there's not a lot of studies on women in electronic music in Australia. And we noticed this when we were doing the study for our TED Talk, the TEDx talk in Perth, because we really wanted to get some stats, to talk about, the legitimacy of what we're doing. And there's not a lot of studies, but what we could find is that in the whole world, only 5% of producers are female.
Wow.
Yeah, which is like staggering. I mean, it's going to be bad, right? But that's pretty
5%.
bad. Yeah, and what we were focusing on there is imagine how much music you're missing out on. How many people's perspectives you're not getting, and what we wanted to look at was, what about our community? So in 2017, the nominations for electronic artists at the WAM Awards were female. There were 17% were female. And in 2018, there were 52%.
Okay.
Actually, 57. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
wow.
they were all WOMPP members. So
that's awesome.
It's actually completely, the scale is like being tipped now, which is incredible.
That must be pretty amazing to see how much of an impact you've made.
Massive. It's like we were shocked, especially because the point of this group was to hang out and talk about music production.
Yeah.
In like a safe environment. It was never like, let's take over the world and like make all these impressions on people's lives. Like there was never like some goal, and I feel like almost like with our artist project as well, like we just wanted to write music. Like it seems that most things now for me and Elise have been starting something with like a really simple goal and then it kind of just snowballs. Yeah. And then we run with it. So yeah.
Well, that's really cool. I mean, to actually be able to see some numbers in an industry where there was really no research, no studies done before as well, and to know how much of a change you made is insane. What was it? Nearly 50% jump?
Yeah, it's
that's
like
crazy.
Over 50, it is crazy.
And so you said, correct me if I'm wrong, 54% female? Mm-hmm. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, you've managed to even things out in that respect.
Yeah, and in like a short amount of time. And this is like our point was with what we've done and like, all these meetings have all been, we just give our time for free, we teach people for free, that's what we wanted to do. But it's a simple business model. If you look at it really, like start something, and this can be, you can actually put this across anything.
Yeah.
Any product, any business, any problem almost, within a business, you can say, cool, let's create an environment where if we're seeing a lack in something, where people can feel safe to learn, give them the pathway, so give them more steps that they can take to progress, and then you will see results.
Yeah.
Like you can pick that model up and move it around to anywhere. Like it's...
And it's funny, for a lot of these artists, it started with actually letting somebody hear your music. And don't be shy, don't be embarrassed.
Yeah, absolutely.
The worst thing that someone could do, especially in a group like that where you're very respectful of each other, the worst thing that someone could do is say, it's not the greatest, but here's why. Yeah. And give you some feedback to make it better.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody should mess with your creativity. You've got the idea there, but it could be a case of, like you said, it could be a sidechain is slightly out of place and it's doing this weird kind of bounce effect that just isn't going to work in the final master, or it could be the vocals are too low, or whatever, or the way they cut it.
Yeah, we've had that. People saying, oh, like the reason you have that problem is because of this, and they go, oh my God, thank you.
Exactly.
Like that's why they're there.
Yeah. I mean, if I give somebody constructive feedback, and of course constructive is the most important part of it.
Absolutely.
I hope that they know that it's to help them, and most of the time they realize. I mean, if somebody doesn't want to accept it, that's fine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in 1 year, they may come back to me and go, you know what? I appreciate you giving me that feedback. I was too proud, or whatever the reason. I didn't want somebody to tell me that this song I spent 6 weeks on needed some more work.
Yeah, because it's close to you. That's the hard thing with
exactly.
music. Like, you're so close to it. Your face is like it's your life, it's your project. It's so from you that it's hard for then people to come and say, oh, this. But I do feel like we are all constantly learning. You can't know music. You can't go tick like done. I've done music. It's a constantly evolving thing and a learning process, I find too. So yeah, I'm always open to that. If someone's like, oh, I watched you play and I have some tips, or I heard your music and I thought about this, I'm like, cool, what do you got? Like, let's talk about it.
Bring it on. I mean,
if I can learn something, that's awesome. That's great.
Exactly. And look, even if the feedback isn't as well received, but I see that they still did what I suggested, I go, that's cool. If that helps them, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I wanted to help them and I achieved it, and you never expect anything in return. It's just, I like your music, or I care about your music. I care about you. I want to help.
Yeah.
What you do with it from here is on you.
Yeah.
But, I've given you some feedback that could potentially help you if you want to take it on board.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool. I love the whole community vibe and how it's like a little family. I feel like I've said this about a lot of people in the industry recently, but it really is, power in numbers and different people who have different skills and different opinions and really helping each other out as well. So, you've told the story and we've talked about feels, and I can't believe how quickly it all happened.
Yeah.
Obviously it didn't happen quickly. You said, classically trained, been playing music since the age of 10.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen overnight.
No.
You were ready for it, and then of course WOMPP and the awards and the label and all of the good things. And then that brings you to Austin, Texas, where you so humbly said that you're doing not 1, not 2, but 6 showcases.
Yes, we hustled super hard because we're coming all the way from Perth, Western Australia, and if people, some people might know, but that is a 24-hour block of flying to get here, and obviously not to mention the money, so it's we wanted to make the most of it. So yes, 6. I'm like, I've really put myself in it now. It's exhausting.
And how many have you done so far?
We've done 2.
Okay.
So we've got the bulk of it coming as of tonight. It's kind of going to snowball from there.
And I know that you were sharing a story which is probably becoming more and more common nowadays with artists relating to your equipment. Yes. And would you like to share that?
I would actually, because it's funny now. At the time, essentially the most stressful thing that has ever happened to me. I can say that confidently. We were on a flight to, we were meant to be, from LA to Austin. And we were there super early, everything was fine, had all our gear. We'd got 4 pieces, right, of pretty big gear. And we were not allowed on our flight. We missed it because the airline screwed up and told us the wrong boarding time. And we were in a different part of the airport because we were literally just there 2.5 hours early. We were so organized. This doesn't happen to us. So that happened. They told us, your gear will be in LA, it'll be fine. We get, it'll be in Austin when you get there. We're like, great, how are we going to get there? Fly us to San Antonio. I was just looked on Google Maps, I don't know, I've never been to the US in my life.
Yep.
So I'm looking on Google Maps at the front desk, okay, send me to San Antonio. I can look at that window just there. That flight is leaving in 7 minutes. I reckon I can get an Uber to Austin just in time to pick up my bags.
Wow.
I reckon we can do it. It was just crazy. And the guy's like, okay, sure, whatever you want. We get on this flight, get to Austin. I'm calling baggage in the Uber, and this poor guy who didn't realize he had to drive from San Antonio to Austin until he picked us up. They don't see where they're getting to. And the bags weren't there. They told us it was locked, you can't get in, you're gonna have to come back tomorrow morning. We come back, the lady goes, no, your bags aren't here. We've got 3 of them, but your 4th bag isn't. Guess what that is? The 4.5 octave mallet cat that we use. Oh no. Which is actually a kind of a one-in-a-kind instrument. You can't just get it in a shop. You can order it in, it takes ages. And we're thinking at this point, oh my God, they've lost it. Our shows are gone. We had a show that night. We're gonna have to cancel it. All this work we've done in the toilet, before we've even started. And it turns out after I showed her a picture of our cases, because we have these pink hard cases.
Okay.
They're you cannot miss them. You got to see this later. It's crazy. She goes, something snapped in her brain, and she goes, oh my God. And she takes me back to the place where we're not allowed to go because she felt so bad. She's covered it with a hockey stick bag and forgotten about it.
Oh.
Moves it over, and there it is. The instrument. It's just been sitting there for hours. And then she bursts into tears.
Wow.
And then she actually told us that her dad passed away just like the day before, and she was really upset, obviously like in heaps of grief, and she probably just didn't, oh, where's my bag? She's like, oh, it's not here, like, and so we hug and we're like crying, and it's like this scene from a movie where
oh, wow.
it was pretty funny. I mean, at the time, not funny at all, and like, as I said, incredibly stressful, but now I'm like, it's hilarious.
Okay, I did not know that part of the story.
I know, I kept
wow. I just, I mean, at least at the end, it was a good ending, and it's a good story. And obviously, her news was heartbreaking. But how nice that you of course sympathised with her and showed her some love. And you're a human being.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell she knew she made a huge mistake. And at this point, I was so relieved that I was like, I don't care. Like, you poor thing. Like, let's just go home. Crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, and then of course, here you are, and you've done the 2 showcases, and the rest are coming up. What's really cool is actually we're recording this live at the W Hotel, which is where you're actually performing later today. Usually, I don't tell people when this podcast was recorded.
Yeah.
But for the sake of this episode, people need to know exactly where we're recording, because there may be a little background noise at times with bands doing sound checks and things like that. I mean, there's a lot happening here in Austin right now, so.
Yeah.
but it was important for us to connect because with Rosie being back in Australia and me confusingly now being based in California but still having an Australian accent, there wasn't really many opportunities for us to connect unless I jumped back on a flight to Australia, which just isn't quite possible right at this minute. No. 24 hours of flying is only fun.
It does
once
things
a year.
To you. It does, it's bad.
It does stuff to you. That's a good way of putting it. Absolutely. It messes with your head a little bit. There's only so many movies you can watch before you've watched them all.
Oh, yeah.
And
see, that's why podcasts are good. Actually.
Exactly, yes. Yes. Podcasts are great company, and...
And noise-cancelling headphones. Very essential travel items right there.
Noise-cancelling headphones are essential.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And... Not just for drowning out noise when you're watching a movie or just drowning out noise in general, but if you want to have a good night's sleep or at least a semi-good night's sleep on the flight, you turn on the noise cancelling and you're out.
I'm actually like an addict. I actually like want to start looking up like, is it even bad for you to wear them all the time? Because I'm seriously like every single night now I have to wear them to go to sleep because I'm so obsessed with them. It's done things to my ears. I love it.
That's it. I mean, I wish there was a way to just permanently put the technology into my ears so you could just be walking down the street, so there's a whole bunch of road noise and you're just drowning it out.
I know.
That'd be fantastic.
It's good.
Excellent. Well, I do see a bit of action happening around here, and I know that we do have to wrap this up very shortly and get out of here, most importantly, because of course you've got the showcase coming up. But before I do that, is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners? It could be some advice, it could be a tip and a trick, it could be, and obviously we're going to get some plugs in at the end for you as well.
Cool. But, sweet.
but yeah, if
I do actually.
Go for it.
I think it's easy to listen to an artist story and go like, oh my God, wow, that's so cool, or they're so lucky, or they got so many opportunities. But I used to think that too when listening to other people's almost like, their stories about their projects, but I can tell you now it's don't ask, don't get.
Yeah. That
is literally how we've gotten everything.
Exactly.
It's like, at the start I used to be so nervous sending emails, and being like, what's the worst thing they can tell you though is no.
Exactly.
And, the amount of times I've just been like, hit someone up like, hey, can I come to, Red Bull Studios and record for 2 weeks? And they're like, yeah. It's like, what? It's like almost like I laugh sometimes when I get the responses because I'm like, oh my God. It's like almost a joke in my head, like, oh, haha, like imagine if they gave this to me. And like people do. It's something that I think as artists we really have to just be like shameless. Also, like people aren't getting together at the end of a day and comparing emails and like being like, look at what this person sent me, ha ha ha. Like,
Exactly.
It's everyone does it. And I think, like, I don't think it's anything to be shameful to talk, like, we should talk about it, you know?
Yeah, and as well, if you were to, let's say you slide into someone's DMs and you try and send them your track or whatever, and they don't respond then, they may come back 6 months later and they may hear you somewhere else, and guess what happens? They go to send you a message and they see that you've already hit them up.
Yeah. And it's also follow up, you know?
There you go. Yeah.
Triple text, why not?
Exactly. I mean,
but also be polite, you know. That's the other one of the things is you got to be like appeal to their human side. Like, I always hit people up, but also like, you know, be a human being. You know, don't say like, here's my music, shove it down your throat. You know, like people like to read nice things.
Exactly. And it kind of reminds me, our mutual friend Dom Alessio. When I first connected with him last year, I was over in Nashville, and obviously his work now with Sounds Australia, really getting behind Australian artists and trying to take them to the world, and doing a fantastic job, I must say. But before that, he worked for Triple J, which for people listening outside of Australia, Triple J is arguably one of the biggest radio stations because they broadcast all across the country, and they will take a punt on an artist, and they will play an artist before anyone else does, before commercial radio do. I mean, Flume got his first plays on Triple J. I think it was even 1 or 2 years before commercial radio got behind him, and he'd already won awards. He'd already put out, you know, the album was basically ready, and then they finally got on board. And Dom, I was, you know, with my music, I was terrified to the point where I didn't know how to submit music to someone like Dom, who hosted a show, Home and Host, which was all about Australian artists releasing Australian music, and I was in Australia and an Australian artist at the time. I asked him, I said, Dom, I was terrified of sending you music, and I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know if you'd respond. And he said, mate, I was on SoundCloud all the time. People would just send me tracks in the DM, or they would get my email address. It wasn't that hard to work out.
Yeah.
However they sent me music, I would listen, because that was my job, to listen to music. And if there was a great track, I need to play it. I need to help this artist, and I need to showcase this music. And you know, I just kind of wanted to add that onto what you said. Because it's exactly that. Had I gone back in time and actually just sent him that track that was already on SoundCloud, or sent him an email when he was working there, at the very least he would have listened. And
totally. It's like, also, these people are doing their jobs. Obviously they're searching for music, they're listening, but you can't sit back and expect them just to find you, you know, or get discovered. It's like, you really have to show, here is everything. Go on the stuff. Make it easy for people.
Exactly.
You know, people are busy.
Exactly, they are. They really are. And you make it easy. You give them everything they need, and then they're going to press play. And if they like it, everything else is there.
Yeah.
They're set.
If they like it, things can change massively for you. Actually, I think Dom Alessio played us for the first time on Triple J. Like, he was the first presenter. It was a Home and Hose. Yeah, wow.
There you go. And for anyone that's listening, Dom Alessio is no longer working at Triple J, so don't go trying to find his email address and pitch him tracks for radio. But that being said, Dom is a fantastic guy, and I definitely recommend following him on socials, especially if you're looking for breaking Australian artists, because he has some of the best ears in the business as far as for knowing what could potentially blow up and pop, and just a genuine nice guy as well, and supports anyone, as long as the music is good. That's basically what he does.
Yeah.
And enough plugs for Dom now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I know that Dom was sort of the reason we first connected as well, so it makes sense to get.
Yeah, we got a shout out.
You know, we got your little shout out in there, Dom. So, you know, there you go, mate. But we do have to wrap this up because it looks like the bar's going to open in a minute, and I wouldn't mind a cold one, and it's going to get real loud in here. So just to end it, can you tell everyone where we can find Feels online and also WOMPP as well, of course?
Yeah, of course. So you can find us on our Facebook. Obviously, WOMPP as well, you can actually find on wompp.com.au. We have Feels has an artist profile on Facebook, which you can connect with us. That's Feels Music Artist. And also on Instagram, feelsofficial_. But our music is also on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, and most major platforms.
Yep.
So yeah, connect with us on social media. That's definitely the best way. Send us a message, do whatever. You can check out our new single as well.
Yes. Give it a plug.
Yeah, it's called Bad For Me, featuring Missy. She was a singer that we connected with in New Zealand when we recently went over for Rebel Studios residency there. So yeah, you can check that one out. It's definitely a little bit of us dipping our toe into the pop realm
Yes.
So yeah, check it out.
Very cool. Well, Rosie, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, especially given how much you're doing here. I know it really does mean a lot to me, and I'm so glad that we were able to connect. And
Yeah, I'm honored. Thank you.
yeah,
Cool.
no, thank you. I really, and for anyone that's listening, I encourage you, go follow Feels, go check them out, because obviously the story is great and you're going to really enjoy the music, but their branding, their content on social media, they've got this really unique look, which I love as well. I remember the performance and the jumpsuits.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say any more. Check them out. You won't be disappointed. And this isn't going to be the last you're going to hear of Feels or WOMPP and all of these amazing artists that they're helping and working with as well, and continuing to develop and grow. And that's what it's all about. Keep helping each other. Mm-hmm. That was a long spiel.
Yeah. Nice.
Excellent.